Hmm.
3 days back, he suffered a massive cardiac arrest. And I went to see him and I said, "Yeah, why did you get a bypass surgery done? You would have saved your family about 12 to 15 lakh rupees."
Hmm.
300 years back, we used to live on average, mankind used to live for between 30 and 40 years. If you look at today, your average lifespan in India is about 70 years. In the US, it's about 80 years. Top four horsemen of death, as I like to call them, in India.
Hmm.
Number one is cardiac. Number two is cancer. Number three is respiratory. And number
Yeah.
fourth is metabolic syndrome. Tell me, what is the number one cause behind all of that?
Welcome to the show, Prashant. It is an honor to have you on the first inaugural episode of season 4. The season 4 will be dedicated entirely towards longevity and getting the corporates and startup people fit. So, thank you for coming on to the show.
It's my honor, my privilege to be here, and quite surprised to hear I am becoming the Rohit Sharma of your longevity show. I hope I do justice to that.
No, I think you are doing an incredible work using your complete reach of social media, especially LinkedIn and Instagram, and spreading the message of longevity. That is definitely the need of the hour. I think cumulatively you have some 39,000 followers on LinkedIn and another 10, 15,000, 20,000 followers on Instagram as well. And you're just creating a lot of waves. I've seen some of your videos reaching up to thousands of views. So it is incredible, work that you're doing with your current stature. And I completely understand, and I want to clarify this to the audience that he's not doing this out of building a new career. The career that you've already built is incredible in itself. And we did speak about your professional trajectory into introduction, but amazing work that you're doing by creating the awareness around longevity, fitness, and everything to do with longevity.
Thank you. Yeah, really appreciate it. Insta is now touched about 43,000. So, yes, I've been grateful. Yeah,
Oh my God.
extremely grateful for the love and people, liking what I'm doing. And I'm incredibly honored to be here, Nishant.
Thank you, Prashant. So let's just kick things off. Let's define the concept of longevity. What is longevity, and let's just break down from the very basic. What does it mean?
Yeah, though people want to believe it's a very innovative new thing, new age tech, no, it's a very simple thing.
Hmm.
Longevity essentially has two components to it, Nishant. First is what I call as longevity is equal to lifespan
Hmm.
plus health span.
Hmm.
So it essentially takes its precedence from the fact that how can you increase the number of years you have on Mother Earth? So,
Hmm.
lifespan, and number two is health span. How do
Hmm.
you then increase the life in that years? So it's essentially talking about not just living longer, but living healthier, younger, and disease free. That's in a nutshell longevity for you. So at its core, it's very simple: increasing your
Hmm.
span and increasing your health span.
Understood. So, what do you think are the fundamental differences between living a fit life versus living a life which is focused on longevity?
So I think not very different, to be very
Hmm.
honest, Nishant.
Hmm.
However, one thing is becoming very, very clear whenever the more work that I am doing
Hmm.
is when you look at today, and when I go to my cousin's house or corporate events to talk, and I
Hmm.
normally start by asking people a question: how many of you want to live 90 plus, 100 plus? And you will not see more than 2-3% people putting up their hands.
Hmm.
And then you go and ask them, why don't you want to live longer? Because we've all know that it's your life is a gift, right? You want to have this gift for as long as you can. And
Hmm.
most people associate the reason why they want to live longer is because there'll be somebody in their house or in their nearby who probably
Hmm.
would be 65, 70, but has either a breathing issue or is
Hmm.
walking with a stick, or he's been a wheelchair, or has had a bypass surgery, some kind of a disability which is not making them feel dependent. They
Hmm.
just feel that they're dependent on their on somebody, and somewhere that feeling of
Hmm.
not being dependent, not wanting to suffer, is one of the
Hmm.
reasons why people feel that they don't want to live longer. And that's
Hmm.
where I to borrow from what you said, that if you are
Hmm.
fit, you will live longer.
Hmm.
You may live longer, but not necessarily you may be fit. But if you are fit, you will definitely live longer. And hence the view is not very simple around longevity, and which is why
Hmm.
health span is a very critical component of longevity, which means you don't want to live longer, but you want to live longer with the youth, with the agility, with the energy, with
Hmm.
zero dependence on anybody. And that's the essence difference. And which is
Hmm.
where the amount of work that you will need to do will also be very different. You know, recently
Hmm.
I did a post, I think on Daughter's Day, and I urged people that if I ask anybody, Nishant, you included, will you live for your kids as long as you want to? And everybody will, sorry, if I ask, will you die for your kids? And everybody puts up their hand and say, yeah, we will die for
Yeah.
our kids. It's very easy to die for your children. It is
Hmm.
very difficult to live longer for your children.
Hmm.
And by living longer, I don't want to live longer and be dependent on them. I want to live longer so that I can be with them.
Hmm.
I can be, for them. And I think that's
Hmm.
where longevity kind of has begun to kind of get a lot of momentum, because it talks
Hmm.
about a very essential component of growing old, which is growing
Hmm.
old with the agility of youth.
So I think Prashant, there's a very fundamental question that arises, and it might even sound controversial to a lot of people. While medical science is making so many strides in getting you to live longer, we'll talk about the quality aspect slightly later. But the way so many vaccines are coming out, even for cancer, some of the cancers like cervical cancer have now a vaccine for most women. At the same time, while you might end up living longer, the quality is something that is questionable. So is it a right assumption to say that when we talk about longevity, we talk about not just the quantity but the quality of life? Is that what it
Essentially,
is?
yes, exactly. It's 50-50. And
Hmm.
you put up a very, very interesting point, Nishan. Uh, if you go back about, say, 200, 300 years,
Hmm.
300 years back, we used to live on average, mankind used to live for between 30 and 40 years.
Right.
If you look at today, your average lifespan in India is about 70 years. In the US, it's about 80 years. So
Yeah.
your number of years on earth have doubled.
Hmm.
That's a great achievement, and that's all thanks to all the medical advancement. It started with what you
Hmm.
mentioned, penicillin coming in, our cure for infections, whether it was
Hmm.
food, whether it was sanitization, that added about 30-40 years. And then diseases of the heart, you had bypass coming in, you had angiography coming in,
Hmm.
all the medical advancements. But
Hmm.
when you double click whether the
Hmm.
quality of life has
Hmm.
improved, the answer to that is a no.
No.
Quantity has gone up, quality has come down. And
Hmm.
hence, now we are trying to say the different thing. We are saying, can you have a great quantity of life, but also have quality? So, in
Hmm.
many ways, when I talk, I am saying our objective is to straighten the longevity curve, which is to
Hmm.
increase the number of years that we live with best quality of health,
Well.
which means not being dependent on anybody. So, to that extent, you are right, Nisha.
So, okay, at one end of the spectrum, we are saying that you can live longer. And at the same time, what I'm also hearing is when you go out and actually meet the millennials or Gen Zs or even the Gen X, there is a theme which is going in the room that I don't want to live longer. Like, nobody wants to live like 80 or 90, right? And you mentioned that because they end up seeing a lot of their own parents and grandparents not really living a very uh, agile kind of a life. So why is that? At one end of the spectrum, you have all the things available. The concepts of sustainability, organic, and all of these things are there. You have vitamins in or everything in one capsule, and on the other hand, the will to live longer is going down. What am I missing? What is the world missing? Where is
I
is
think
the
it's a
branding not
paradox.
good enough?
I think it's a big lie, and I'll
Hmm.
tell you why is it a big lie. And I'll give you an example as of yesterday, not
Hmm.
even longer. One of my so similar debate about 2 weeks back. I was in Calcutta around
Hmm.
why should one live longer? Because people know I'm deep into this subject and I want to live longer. And you'll always have opponents when you go, right? And people
Hmm.
used to say you should not live longer. And particularly this brother-in-law of mine, and he is about 55, and he was arguing with me that there is no point living longer. We should try and live a good quality life and die, peacefully, was his word. 3 days back, he suffered a massive cardiac arrest.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
3 days back. And
Unbelievable.
he was here he lives in Bombay. He was in Calcutta for some other reason. And I went to see him. And I said, yeah, why did you get a bypass surgery done?
Hmm.
You don't want to live longer.
Hmm.
You would have saved your family about 12 to 15 lakh rupees. You would have saved yourself a compromised life starting tomorrow. But 2 weeks back, you were saying, I don't want to live longer. Here, God gives you the gift of leaving Mother Earth early, and you choose not to do that. And that's the reality. Everybody loves to say there is no point living longer, but when you are on that deathbed, trust me, if somebody will come and say, I will give you 1 month extra to live, you will give your hand and your leg to live longer. So I think it's more a fashion to say, I don't want to live longer. When you are put on the spot, everybody wants to live longer. And that's my point. That ultimately you will reach a stage where you will want to live longer. Then why not live with full agility, full health, full vitality, with full health span? And that's the essence. Nobody wants to live longer, yet nobody wants to die early. So millennials are a different lot, right? I'll tell you why millennials are a different lot. I'll give you an example. Titanic, before the Titanic kind of hit the iceberg, the Titanic was, the waters were very calm. And the waters were very calm, which gave Titanic a false sense of security. Despite getting 2 signals from incoming vessels that there are icebergs ahead, because the waters were calm, they got a false sense of security. Titanic actually sped very fast, hit the icebergs. So I think the youth have this sense, because nothing is wrong in their life. It's a point of view they end up taking. The moment they proceed, more in life, and they meet with some kind of a disability, the view changes. So I don't give too much importance to the way millennials are thinking, because the waters are calm yet. But I look at what people in the 35, 45, 55 say. And you pick up any disease. Okay. Let's look at the top 4 horsemen of death, as I like to call them, in India. Number 1 is cardiac disease of heart, which includes stroke. Number 2 is cancer. Number 3 is respiratory. Respiratory is because India consumes a lot of tobacco, not just smoking, but even tobacco. And number 4 is metabolic syndrome, right? And tell me, what is the number 1 cause behind all of that?
I believe it will be sedentary lifestyle and the things that we consume. No. Okay.
The number 1 cause is aging.
Oh, really?
The more you will age, the higher are your chances of dying of a cardiac arrest, or of cancer, or of respiratory, or of a metabolic syndrome. And that's where I want to introduce my second concept. What do we mean by longevity? What do we say that live longer, younger, healthier? So I always say that we all have 2 ages. One is the age on your passport or in your Aadhaar card, which I call it as your chronological age. The physical number of years you've spent on Mother Earth. We also have another age. This is the biological age. What is your age from within? And trust me, you don't need any device to tell you that. You look into a mirror and you will have a sixth sense. Are you aging faster? Are you aging younger? You go to a family wedding. You will have your cousins or friends, all 3, 4, 5 of you of similar age. One looks older, one looks younger. Not everybody looks the same. Which means inside somebody is aging faster. And in the world of longevity, it is the biological age, or the true age, or your inner age that matters. Let me give you an example of mine. Right about 2.5 years back, I was in the US. I got myself tested for what my biological age was within. And you can get it tested through your saliva or in your blood. There is a DNA methylation test developed by Dr. Stephen Hovrath, and it's called the Hovrath clock, which measures your biological age. And when I was 49, my inside age was 54.
Wow.
Okay, which means from within I was 54 years old. My biomarkers. And
Hmm.
we mentioned, right, in India, you will live up to 69, 70 years. So if I was 54, which was my biological age, and assuming I am an average Indian, I would have died at 70.
Hmm.
70 minus 54, I would have spent another 15, 16 years on Mother Earth. Which means when my chronological age would have been 65, I should have died, or I would have died. Right?
Correct.
And then you did a lot of protocols. I implemented a lot of things. It was a big wake up call, etc., etc., etc. About 6 months back, I was back in the US again. After doing a lot of the stuff that we will talk about later,
Yeah.
I got myself tested again.
Hmm.
In 2 years, my biological age had come down from 54 to 37,
37.
which means now I have 33 more years to live,
Yeah.
which means I am now 51. If I had 33 years, I can live up till 85,
Yeah.
which means I will live 20% more than an average Indian. Chronological age cannot be slowed down or reversed, but biological age can be slowed down
Biological.
or reversed.
Course.
You've seen me posting a lot of my, on Insta, my running zones, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, zone 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you see, my age is 51. So let's take hypothetically 50, which as per a very basic calculation, my HR max should be about 170, 220 minus my age, right?
Minus 50. Yeah.
Yeah. Consistently, when I am doing my tempo runs or high intensity training, I can
Hmm.
train at an HR max of about 190,
Yeah.
which technically means 220 minus 190, 30 is my biological age from within. So there
Right.
are many ways, which essentially means that, when I will be 85, if I am consistent with what I am doing, if I don't screw up, chances
Hmm.
are I will have a youth or a vitality of a 70-year-old.
Right.
And that's longevity.
Longevity.
It's not just about adding years to life, but
Hmm.
it's adding life to years.
Life to the years. Excellent. I think very well explained. Now the concept is pretty much clear. Uh, okay, so let's segue into a segment where a lot of our viewers who have been part of Trifantry community for many years, most of them are marathoners or even Ironman athletes. They would be very interested to know that, because let's say you would appreciate as a triathlete or a Ironman, you are already doing a lot of things on your swimming, cycling, running, strength and conditioning, recovery, your diet, and your sleep. These seven are the pillars of a triathlon training. And so these are the bunch of people, let's say, and they are not very large in number in India. As of now, the universe for Ironman would be about 10,000, small or big distances put together, who are actively participating in races. And then for marathons, the universe would be about 50 lakhs, about 5 million, who are actively participating in any 5, 10, 21K race. So these are people who are most likely to take up onto new concepts also. Now that we have set a benchmark, and this is the benchmark that for a triathlete and marathoner, how do you think the concepts of longevity can be applied to this subset of triathletes and then the overall set of marathoners? How does the concept of longevity apply to them? Are there any overlapping, factors that these guys are already doing, and is there something that can be added to bring in more quality, not just today but maybe 20, 30, 40 years later?
So, great question, Nishant. So, the way I think about this is I cannot look at the entire cohort as one first.
Hmm. Hmm.
The reason being, when you actually double click on that cohort, when you look at the guys who are Ironman, the full Ironman runners or comrade runners, all the ultra runners, or people who do full marathon,
Hmm.
uh, or people who do half Ironman as well, it's a special bunch of athletes
Yeah.
who are really
Right.
pushing, and they're
Sure.
not just pushing themselves in the physical limitations, but for the ability to push themselves. My understanding is they would be taking good care about the nutritional aspect, about
Yeah.
the recovery and the sleep part of it. The question to them is not about this. The question to them is, which I have seen in some of my friends, when you get bored with what you are doing, when you take your pedal off the
Hmm.
escalator
Hmm.
at any given point of time, it could be now, it could be after 2 years or 3 years. After that, what do you do consistently? that will define. So if they are consistent about training for Ironman for the rest of their life or full marathon for the rest of their life, I don't think they need to change much. In my view, this is about 10% of the cohort.
You're right.
90% of the cohort, in my view,
Hmm.
are somewhere in the middle. They have made the first leap of faith from being what you use the word sedentary to getting serious about fitness, and have just entered, right? Whether it's a 5K runner or a 10K runner, they've just entered. To them, I would say this is my cohort. The first thing they will need to work is on sleep. For me, undersleep is an epidemic in this country.
Okay,
and when I am talking about this cohort, Nishant, this in my way, in my zone applies to everybody, right? And when I go for my sessions, I was recently 2 weeks back, I mentioned at a session in Calcutta. Some of my very dear friends, all chartered accountants, were there. And, I told them, you guys don't need to do anything if you want to live longer or healthier. Can you do one thing for me? And trust me, I told them, you have to take no effort. So I'm giving you are chartered accountants, you understand return on investment more than I. Can you give me 8 hours of sleep every night? You know what? So many hands were put up and they said, it's impossible. And that's my point. If you can't sleep, how do I get you out of bed to exercise? How do I get you out of bed to eat right? So I think to all the remaining 90% of the cohort, important is to sleep. And I'll tell you why. The moment your sleeping pattern changes, trust me, your eating pattern will change. The kind of energy then you will have, you will automatically want to work out. So I keep telling people, sleep is foundational. If you don't build your sleep pattern right, doesn't matter whether you are training well or eating right. It will all eventually give up. So sleep for me is foundational for this 90% of people. Then second, and you and I know this, I always tell people that if you want to become an athlete, and I love this quote by Bill Bowerman, which says that if you have a body, you are an athlete. A lot of people feel that you are not an athlete. No, if you have a body, you are an athlete. And what I tell people is you have to keep going up, load progressively. So 5K must become 10K in a year's time. 10K must become 21K in 3-4 years' time.
Sure.
Then you don't want to run more, I'm okay. But then start bettering on the time. Start getting. So what happens is so there is something called as a challenge and skill channel. Okay. If your challenge is very, very high compared to your skill, you will not be able to attempt because you are demotivated.
Right.
Today, if I ask you, Nishant, run with Kipchoge and beat him, मेरे को start ही नहीं करने का है ना.
Correct.
And the reverse is true.
Correct.
If your challenge is too small and skill is very high, you will get bored very soon.
Right.
Idea is how do you remain in the channel skill funnel for a long period of time. So you keep doing progressively overload. So all the people who are listening, who have started their fitness journey, I would tell them from an exercise standpoint, keep progressively overload. However, one thing that I have observed as a runner amongst most of my friends, because they run a half or a full, they don't strength train.
Yeah. And
this is the world of cardio versus strength, right? The strength guy feels cardio is not important. The cardio guys feel strength is not important. And I had done a video on this. And I asked, please go and ask Rahul Dravid for India to win the World Cup. Batsmen are more important or bowlers? So to those people, I will say, if you are doing 3 days of cardio, you must do 2 to 3 days of strength. One without the other will not give you what you want when you grow older. Health span. So sleep, exercise, and then nutrition. And ये तो एक अलग ही Pandora's box. जितना बोलो उतना, and everybody has a point.
Correct. A viewpoint on
the
it.
The amount I get bashed when I do posts on nutrition is not funny.
Yeah.
But at the core, it is what we are saying is nothing very difficult.
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, Prashant, uh, I want to highlight this to the audience, whoever is listening to us, is that sometimes when you see so much data, so much content coming through social media and hearsay on WhatsApp University, so many things are said and told to you and given to you as tips, or you should do this, don't do that, ये कर लोगे तो वो हो जाएगा, वो कर लोगे तो वो हो जाएगा, ये काढ़ा बना के पी लोगे तो आपका डायबिटीज खत्म हो जाएगी. So the point is that the audience is not completely wrong in terms of you know getting confused or getting worked up around this concept of, so, see, longevity obviously is a good to have concept, right? Uh, it's a progressive state which will come when you have the basic principles in place. You, like you said, the ability to be able to sleep on time and wake up on time, give your body at least 7 to 8 hours of rest, focusing on getting the nutrition right, the push and pull of anaerobic versus aerobic, all of that is important. And I think that is very critical for any of the listeners today, is that don't overcomplicate things. The point is that it has what our parents used to tell us like 20, 30, 40 years ago, ki wake up on time, subah utho, varjish karo, ye khao, wo khao, time pe so jao. I think those are the basic fundamentals, right? To just to put it in a very crude language or a very simplified concept, right? Is that the right way to go about it, that getting it started with the very basics?
So yeah, I started my career in the world of finance and wealth. I used to work with Rakesh Junjunwala, and
Hmm.
he used to tell this to us. Creating wealth is
Hmm.
simple, not easy.
Hmm.
It's the same with health.
Hmm.
Creating health is very simple, Nishant,
Yeah.
but it's very difficult.
Correct.
Just because it is simple, it is difficult.
Correct.
Okay. And
Absolutely.
hence, so when you look at, today we are in a world where everybody has different motivation. You will be
Hmm.
overpowered with information. So I
Hmm.
have a beautiful saying that all behavior is belief driven.
Hmm.
Right? Believe you can, believe you can't. Either ways, you are right. Henry Ford said that.
Hmm.
Where am I coming from? If your belief is very strong in something, your behavior will change.
Hmm.
Right? So you have to first get your belief in place.
Hmm.
When I'm getting belief in place, I cannot be believing in 30, 40, 50, 100 influencers.
Right.
Who connects with you?
Hmm.
Maybe there is somebody who doesn't like science, who only likes ancient wisdom.
Hmm.
Then follow that. But don't pick
Correct.
and choose, because then
Hmm.
you are breaking up, right?
Right.
But I have seen it, and that's what I was wanting to tell you, right? At its
Hmm.
core,
Hmm.
it is very simple, right? And
Hmm.
so 2, 3 things I will tell you, or our audience. There is a beautiful quote by Michael Pollan. So
Hmm.
when it comes to nutrition, he said, eat food, mostly plants, not too much.
Hmm.
तीन चीज follow करना. Eat foods. Package is not food. Process is not food. Fruit
Not
juice is
food.
not
Yeah.
food. Cola
Natural
is
food.
not food. When he says food, he's saying whole foods,
Whole
right?
foods.
Mostly plants.
Hmm.
If you love your meat and your fish, eat it, but mostly plants. The moment you get
Sure.
into plants, again, you're talking of vegetables and fruits,
Correct.
and not too much.
Yeah.
Eating less
Stopping
often
before you're full.
is the single biggest mantra of longevity. There are so many studies that have been done on something called as calorie restriction.
Hmm. Right.
When you give your body less food, the body becomes stronger. In science, we call it as hormesis. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. If you
Right.
are like me, a complete man of belief of science,
Hmm.
there are enough scientific studies being done on fasting and how fasting improves the length of people's life and rodents' life.
Hmm.
If you are a man of ancient wisdom, there is not a
Hmm.
religion or a culture in the world that does not talk about the benefit of fasting.
Fasting. Yes.
So कुछ नहीं करना है. Eat food, mostly plants, not too much. Tick mark. You don't need to do anything else.
Hmm.
Or you follow my guru, Robert Lustig. He says, there is something called as real food and there is something called as unreal food. And he defines real food. Anything that protects your liver and feeds your gut is real food. Everything else is unreal food. So मैं चीनी खाता हूँ, चीनी destroys my liver, not food. Bread destroys my liver, not food. Vegetable not just protects my liver but feeds my gut, great food.
Great.
Essentially वही convergence आ रहा है, right?
Right.
Eat a wholesome diet, not too much of processed, refined, sugar.
Correct.
नहीं है complicated.
It's not complicated. I think well put. This is certainly something which a lot of not just athletes will take away, but in terms of the regular people who definitely get confused with n number of dime and dozen influencers coming out in the market and posting stuff. This is critical. So okay, let me ask you a new question, a different question. Now, there's a very young population in the country. More than 65%, 65% of people in the country are below the age of 35. And then you have a aging population, which India is not there yet, but eventually we will also reach at a stage which probably the Japan and the Korean and most developed economies are facing. Do you think longevity is as a concept is a more targeted concept for the aging population, or is it something that should be taken up from a young age? Will longevity be more relevant to oldies, or is it relevant to youngsters as well? I know it's a very rudimentary question because
it is not. It is not.
I know I have been like, I'll tell you a quick before you share your part of the story. Like 18 years back, I was obese category 2 and I was just 17 years old. So I was 17, I was 113 kilos, and at 17 I had not even fully grown. I was about 5'7". Now I'm 6'2", and obese category 2. I think my if I remember correctly, my BMI at that time was higher, upwards of 30 or something. So it was really bad. And what I really how my life completely changed was when my dad, Colonel Inder Mohan, who took me under his wings, and for a year long he taught me the ways of the army, waking up on time, just going out for small runs, sprints, spending some time in the gym, and then taking care of the diet itself. Thoda khao, kam khao, regular intervals pe khao. And within a year I lost 32 kilos. And
Wow.
Sustainably. It was obviously, some would say that you were losing way too much too much fat, you would have lost a muscle and all that. But that 1 year completely changed me. And this is 2005 when my fitness journey started. I've not stopped since then. So while the question is, the explanation might be contrary to the question, but not a lot of youngsters these days want to talk about concepts like healthy eating and mere ko mat batao, my body can digest anything. So do you think that longevity should be taken up only by the oldies or the youngsters as well?
So yeah, I read a very beautiful quote, Nishant, which says,
Yeah.
which I think your younger audience will also be able to relate, which says the best time to repair the roof is when the sun is shining. Right?
Yeah.
हम लोग के फाइनेंस में भी बोलते हैं, let's say Nishant wants to retire at the age of 65.
Right.
When do you start saving? In your 30s or late 20s or in your late 50s?
Of course, as early as possible.
So
Early 20s.
it applies to health as well, right?
Yeah.
So one big advantage the youth have over any one of us is that their DNA is still younger. But this is the age where you build habits. None of us are, you were not, what you say, obese category 2 for anything else but the habits you picked up early in your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those habits are very difficult to change. I read this brilliant book by James Clear called Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
And he talks about it. It's very easy to inculcate good habits or new habits. But it's very difficult to get rid of bad habits. In Bombay, where I live, I am on a lane parallel to where there are all colleges, NMIMS, Mithibai, all of them. And there is a small panwala shop about 1 minute from my house below, the number of youth today I see smoking, I'm
Yeah.
appalled.
Incredible.
And believe me, 70% of them are girls. The number
Yeah.
of people who pick up a Red Bull and drink, it's appalling.
Yeah.
Now, currently the system is too young to repent or to retaliate. And it gives them that false sense of security, right?
Yeah.
But as the habit becomes, हमारे finance में there is a beautiful word called the power of compounding.
Yeah.
It compounds over a period of time. ये जो bad habits जब compounding होती है, that extra smoke every day that goes and hits your endothelial layer in the artery walls is what is making that artery walls weaker. This is
Right.
where your ApoB particle will get stuck. It is where your heart attack starts.
Wow.
Right? It's the same with cancer. It's the same with respiratory disease. So if you are a youth, your youth will give you a false sense of security. Again, it comes back to the question that we were discussing of some time back. Within this youth cohort, there'll be 5% youth who are serious about health. You will see them at the gym also. You will see them in school athletic events as well. They are eating right also. Because if they are not eating right, they will not be at the top.
Correct.
And then there will be the 90% of the cohort who has a who cares attitude. And to each its own right. But one thing I will tell, when it comes to creating health, the best time to start was yesterday.
Yeah.
The next best time is today. You are never too late. I'll give you a very interesting study. So they took a cohort of people over the age of 90 years. And they made them do strength training.
Yeah.
Right? And their muscle mass, muscle strength, and muscle power increased between 30 and 170% in only 12 weeks' time.
Wow.
And this is
107%.
170%.
170% at the age of 90 plus. In
So,
just 3 months.
Yeah, exercise, nutrition, all this gives you very, very immediate benefits.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would obviously want the youth of my country to be health conscious. But I know for a fact that it's a sense, there is a calm, there is a false sense of security won't allow them. Plus, there is an arrogance of youth.
Correct.
Right? तो वो थोड़ा टफ कोहर्ट है, वो नहीं समझेगा. और मेरे एक्स बॉस राकेश झुंझुनवाला हमको ये और एक बात बोलते थे कि प्रशांत, नास्तिक को आस्तिक मत बनाओ, वक्त बना देगा.
Correct. Absolutely.
But people who are over the age of 30, 35, trust me, they are already at the peak. The downfall is started. Now it's up to them. Do they want to slow down? Do they want to reverse? Or do they want to accelerate?
Correct.
So when I also talk, I know I want to impress the youth, but most of what I'm trying to tell also lands in that 35 zone. जिसको एक पहला सदमा पहुंचा है, who's had that one scare in his life, gets serious.
Yeah. No, beautifully put, I think, Prashant. Like my story, how I started, I was obese category 2 and I was facing that constant abuse or being butt of a joke from most people or your peer group, and not just looking part of the group also was the catalyst for me. And then obviously at the right time I got the right guidance and the right ways. There are n number of get rich quick kind of schemes running in the market that you start popping these pills and you lose weight. You can put these kind of steroids and you will bulk up, and all of those kind of misinformation is definitely rampant in the market. But I think collectively, if someone is watching today or hearing us on Spotify, my recommendation to you would be, don't think it as a chore, think it as a part of your life that you should be doing. How you take out time to even spend some time on social media or eat or drink, this should be part of life. And that's when you make it the part of your life. It could be 30, 40, 50 minutes in the morning or in the evening, whatever time you can find out. and you start early, like Prashant mentioned, it's all about compounding effect. Earlier you start, the more benefits you will actually be able to reap, and you can become faster. So people who are already athletes, the earlier you started, you could see now that it takes 3 to 4 to 5 years for you to mature into a decent athlete, and then you can start gunning for timings or becoming better at one or the other sport. So the earlier the better, right?
And I think being fit or being healthy is a state of mind.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
and it's not about that. And the moment you are sleeping better,
Hmm.
the biggest benefit of this is on your focus, on your cognition.
Yeah.
To the same youth in this today's over competitive world, if you have to beat somebody, you will need sharpness of the mind. That sharpness of the mind doesn't come from drinking alcohol. It
Hmm.
corrupts your mind. It
Yeah.
will only come from sleeping well.
Correct.
On top of
Absolutely.
that, by sleeping well, if you then go and do even 30 minutes of exercise,
Yeah.
your mind is rocket
Yeah.
sharp, right?
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter who comes in between, you will beat the person.
100%.
So to that
100%.
extent, it's a state of mind, but youth is the most vulnerable category.
Correct. I think to sort of the benefits of being a fit person or a healthy person who takes care of all of these parameters, some of them, like you mentioned, you're definitely, I think, cognitive abilities are so much better. And whatever you wear, you end up looking so much better than your
Absolutely.
general self, right? And
In
that
fact,
kind of builds that confidence also to go out and give interviews or stand up on any platform or take up the phone. And there's, you are so much immune to all these social media likes, comments, and vanity matrices, because you yourself do not need validation from anyone else. You know that you are becoming better. And so, I mean, in the age of social media, where this is also one of the ways that we are trying to spread the message, I think you will just have better following, and you will end up looking so much better, not just in pictures, but in general in life as well, right?
so Dr. Andy Galpin says this. He's probably
Hmm.
the best exercise physiologist doctor globally, and he
Hmm.
says you must get fit to look good, feel good, and play good.
Playing
And
good.
trust me, if you ask me from a youth perspective, this is the
Hmm.
biggest driver of them wanting to be fit. And I will compliment whether it's the Indian cricket team or all Indian sports athletes and
Hmm.
Bollywood for spreading this message that if you are
Hmm.
not fit, you will not look good. And
Hmm.
I think that could be a very big motivator for a lot of people to put in the effort, because they know that if they look good, whether it's a guy or a girl, they
Hmm.
will have a disproportionate attractiveness. And I think being attractive is not a big is not a bad reason
That.
to get fit. Your why is very important. My why was I lost my father and my brother to a disease of heart,
Yeah.
and hence I am very serious about defying death, living longer. Yours could be I want to put out 10 girls or 10 guys, and I'm fine with it as long
Hmm.
as you are treating your body well, right?
Well,
Because if your why is strong, you will figure out the how.
100%. 100%. I think you've been sharing, spitting out wisdom after wisdom. I think not just for youngsters, but athletes or the senior, population. Before we, conclude our discussion, I wanted to ask you a question that what do you think is the future of longevity and ultra fitness in India? Do you think this is a field which is currently a non-sexy kind of a field, and it's not a completely that instant gratification? This is not a field which will give you something. You click something in 10 minutes, it will get delivered. So how do you, someone who's kind of building any startup into this field, or generally someone who's starting out to build their own longevity and fit lifestyle, what do you think is the future in the country, and what are the things that can be done to augment this field?
So one, I tend to believe that this is probably where automobiles were in the early 1900s. It's just beginning, right?
Wow.
And every single day people are getting more excited about this space. So
Hmm.
let me put it differently. If I look at a funnel, and if there is a
Hmm.
startup who is wanting to build, the top of the funnel is very large,
Hmm.
right? The moment you are getting deeper and deeper, the funnel is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And then there is this patla sa funnel ka tube. In that funnel ka tube, it's a very small cohort who's very serious about health. The way I look at it is, everybody wants to be seen serious about health. Everybody wants to be seen eating good. So अगर आप एक cohort में जाओगे जहाँ माहौल में there are peers, then I want to drink a Diet Coke. Then I don't want to eat carbs. Sugar is bad. And if you close the door, only one person give him, he will eat all the wrong things. So intrinsic motivation is not there. Extrinsic motivation is high.
Right.
The question is, can we convert extrinsic motivation into intrinsic motivation? It depends a lot on the individual, but it also depends a lot on people like you and me.
Right.
Because how are we doing our bit to spread the awareness? So आज भी we talk about good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. It's pathetic. There is no thing called good and bad cholesterol.
Yeah.
Without cholesterol, there is no life. It's the carrier of cholesterol where there is a problem. But even today, you go to the best of the cardiologist, he will look at your LDLC and say, oh, LDLC high hai, boss, eggs khana kam karo. Arey, dude, this is a cardiologist.
Yeah. Having spent 10 years, 15 years in the...
So education, awareness is our responsibility, and which is why the more and more people come, great for us. And then there will be enough opportunities. So people who are playing at the surface, big funnel, people who want to go deep, smaller funnel. But I also feel that this is again a space where there will only be 5% people who will be keen and very interested. You will not be able to convince 95% people to get healthy.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, they come with a mindset that doesn't allow them.
That's right.
सबसे पहले mindset change करना है.
Yeah.
तो mindset change करने में, as I said, यार एक internal belief की जरूरत है.
Yeah.
That is always missing.
Yeah. I've often said this in so many forums, is that if we can introduce ultra fitness or fitness and financial fitness, these two concepts are something that should be introduced from the first standard itself. And if you are able to teach it for the next 12 years, 14 years, right up to your colleges, and then it can also be taken up with the substantial amount of funding going from the corporate side, having programs to getting your employees fit and healthy and pitting them against each other. Some of them are doing it now. Yeah. I mean, because then there's no tangible and immediate benefit of it.
No, the benefit is there, but I'll tell you why it won't work. Because school में आज भी बच्चे सो जाते हैं.
आज भी बच्चे सोते हैं.
If the subject, it's not the curriculum, it's who is teaching them.
Yeah.
Right.
True.
अगर वो interesting नहीं है, however, I would want to do that differently. So, for example, I had written a letter to Neeta Ambani, and this I had taken a cue from NBA in US. There was a period in NBA, for a period I think for 7 years or 10 years. They had gone into this, that 60 minutes play for kids compulsory.
Yeah.
They took it upon them to talk about why it is important for kids to play for 60 minutes till the age of 23. And it was a movement on their website, all LeBron James, Michael Jordan talking about it and all. So if today IPL takes this mental, and starts talking about importance of Virat Kohli, for example, even in the 2-minute video says, guys, don't eat sugar.
Right.
Trust me, it will go down far more thing than a school
effectively.
Or Bollywood. I am trying to work with Farhan Akhtar if very, very at a preliminary stage. He makes movies, he makes web series. In most of the web series and movies, there are scenes where people are eating something. And my pitch to him is, yaar, wo table jab aap layout karte ho, mere ko layout kar de. Unless it is a demand of the movie. Demand of the movie is ki aap cigarette pee rahe ho, it's okay.
Yeah.
But suppose demand of the movie aapko khali khana hi dikhana hai, to main kyun bread dikhaun, main kyun fruit juice dikhaun?
Wow.
And then can I get one dialogue which incorporate. I think it has a far bigger reach.
Yeah.
So to the startup ecosystem, these are the people your youth or your funnel listens to.
Correct.
So if you are doing a startup in this space, if you have the money, get one of these guys on.
Yeah. Absolutely.
People will listen to them. So I will do the education, but in a language which they like to understand.
Correct.
And by the person they want to understand from.
Correct. 100%. All right, Prashant, thank you so much. I think the conversation, so many beautiful nuggets, lifelong ideas. Even if 10 people are inspired today to take up some of these initiatives, and I think it'll go a long way. Before we call it a day, I would like to ask you one question. If there was a billboard which was seen by more than 1 billion people, what message would you like to give them?
Learn to live for your family, not die for them.
Wow. Learn to live for your family and not die for them. Beautiful. All right, Prashant, thank you so much for taking out your time and being generous with your thoughts. You have shared years of wisdom in just this 45-50 minutes of our conversation. It's a pleasure to have you, and I'm really looking forward to the episode coming out and more people looking at it.
Thank you, Nishant. It has been an absolute honor and a privilege to be here, and look forward to being in touch, and wishing everybody who will hear this now, today, tomorrow, whenever, all the best with their fitness journey. And I'll just tell them, start any day. Don't worry about that you've not started this. The best time to start is now.
Thank you so much, Prashant.